Welcome back to VenomousStare's YouTube channel where we cover all things StarCraft. My last video was a 2v2 in which my ally left, and this is going to be a pro game, a 1v1 between Stephano and Hero, two of my favorite players, and my middle mouse button's a little bit screwed up, so like that, you see I'm trying to move the mouse down to scroll it, and it's not really working, so that might be a little bit of an issue. The observing might be a little substandard compared to what you're used to seeing, because I can't make slight movements like that, because when you use the arrow keys, it's too static, it's too much, it doesn't really work. So I like to click over on the mini-map and then click my mouse button and then pan over like it's a camera. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those photos of these kids who are taking videos of school fights, and they're like getting down on their belly and going for these elaborate points of view like it's National Geographic. So Hero up here in the top left, South Korean Protoss player known for his exceptionally crisp and surprising builds. He's one of these Protoss players who just has an insane amount of builds he can go to. Think SOS. I always think of Hero as a player who doesn't necessarily plan as much as SOS or use as many mind games as SOS. And when I say plan, I mean in like a best of 5 sense. When SOS is playing a best of 5, he's the person who can really plan it the best out of Protoss players, I think. Because if you look at someone like Stats, he's very frequently just going to play defensive and safe. And I think oftentimes Hero comes up with these exceptionally clever builds and sort of masters them. And a lot of times he's just sort of picking from his bag of builds as he scouts around within a depth there as Stephano takes his third. Now that's very dangerous, the way that he plays Hero. But SOS is just an absolute sicko. SOS is, in my opinion, more dangerous because he's willing to take more extreme sort of positions, whereas even though Hero is known as a builds guy, SOS is a complete sicko that'll do cannon rushes and proxy gates and stuff like that much more willingly than Hero. Hero taking a Twilight here, as we see there was a pause in the game. These are from Katowice, by the way. This tournament happened maybe like a week ago or so, but I wanted to cast a game that was actually pro level, and I looked into my folder and this is what I had, and these are still on the current patch, so you can definitely learn from these and take things from them, including the builds. First Oracle's on the way for Hero. I would expect him to make a Phoenix here and go Overlord hunting. Oh, he already has. Derp. The reason you make a Phoenix here is to hunt Overlords first of all. It's pretty much the reason you make a Phoenix or a Viking, but yeah, to lift this Queen. That's what I was going to say, but I just always like to bring this up as someone who plays all three races, and by the way, recently achieved Masters League for the first time in 1v1 after being Masters in team games, which is pretty cool. One thing that I've noticed, Stephano complaining about lag. They say it won't happen anymore. Stephano, are we sure? Yes, promise. That's a quote. It wasn't me first time, second time it was me. Go, go, go. Okay, interesting I suppose. I remember hearing that there were a lot of annoying computer issues at this Katowice tournament. The one thing that I always remember about Katowice tournaments, or I guess not remember as we see Adepts moving out here, the one thing I always think is Katowice. As an American, I see the name and just think it's pronounced Katowice. But for several years I've known better, but for like the first one, it's like it's Katowice. Oh no, it's Katowice. Okay. +1 attack as well as roach speed coming for Stephano, and he's heavily droning behind this. This is the correct way to micro against Adepts, what you just saw, where you basically shadow the shades in a very diligent manner that you almost want to show the Protoss player, hey, I have stuff here, I'm ready to defend. Because on some level, unless you really have your whole army there, you don't want them to shade in. We saw Stephano had a lot of his stuff over here, and about half of it over here. This was smart because if Hero was like hiding in this corner, he could have cancelled the shade if he knew Stephano was faking. That's just sort of the the 101 of Adept Micro is you want to split off some to go with the shades, but in my opinion, when you play Zerg, you always want to show the majority of your army on the shades. They might be saying, well, why is that? Wouldn't it be better to just show a little bit of your army or hide it completely? The thing about Adepts, especially once they get the Adept upgrade, which they have, if you get in a position where you just have a little bit of your army by, you're hiding sort of out of their vision, which you have to get a reasonably far away to get it out of their vision, you can actually lose drones very easily if you're sloppy. The Protoss can get in and do a lot of damage. And really with Adepts, the main thing you're focusing on preventing is them running in behind your mineral line and killing drones. And Adepts are this harass that sort of persists and is a pain in the ass if you're Zerg. In this case, they were cleaned up, but what I was saying is, a good Protoss player, once they take an initial advantage with Adepts, they'll continue to maneuver around the map and go to your various bases. And especially, not necessarily, you know, when it's 7.5 minutes in the game and the toss has a third that's up and kicking. But what I'm really talking about is the situations in the early mid-game, whether you're Terran or Zerg or even Protoss. If those Adepts start to do damage and you're sort of caught on the back foot by them, it can be brutal to try to defend them. Speed Zealots are going to chase some roaches here. There's a nice little Archon Sentry composition comes in. Guardian Shield being thrown up preemptively. Warp Prism goes down. Oracle's still up. And an Observer is here as well. Stephano really doesn't have very much. He has a lot of supply though. 20 roaches. A couple of mortals mixed in though. Things can get difficult. Remember, of course, Zealot Legs has completed. The Immortal is being aggressed upon as the Protoss army is being microed rather sloppily, as there was an engagement with Adepts going on in the natural that was virtually inconsequential. Well, actually, they're in the main, Kappa. You can tell I don't watch these games preemptively. Adept Shade, or now I'm really screwing it up. Oracle Trap goes off there. Called Stasis Ward. Freezes 4 roaches. And the Power Mortal gets picked up. You know, I've actually had people accuse me of pre-writing some of the jokes I make in the video. And, obviously that's not true. Because they're not good enough to be pre-written, Kappa. But in this sense, yeah, I saw some stuff died over here, and I assumed it was the Adepts. But the Adepts came into the main and did a little damage. How much damage, you might ask? 21 workers, and if we go to the Units tab, Stephano's a little bit ahead. He still has his 4th, which is really nice. Creep spread's solid. Not phenomenal, but solid. He has a little bit working up top. Oracle's still scouting around. One of the most important things to do as Protoss is to keep your Oracle alive. If you're going to go for an early Stargate build, Oracle retention is very important. They're fast enough units where a lot of times there's really no excuse for losing them unless you get fungled. And even now, fungal only slows, it doesn't snare, and with a unit this fast, a lot of times it's easy to get away. Point being, the Oracle can do harass like this. Look at this, Hero's gonna steal 8 drones here. Really unwarranted, and he basically caught Stephano just a little bit off guard. It wasn't even a big mistake or anything by Stephano, and he just wrecked this base, stopped mining. That was a game-changing maneuver, just to fly that Oracle in. But the main reason I like to keep the Oracle is Revelation. You can tag your opponent's army. It's such a powerful move to not be caught off guard. And Hero's just going to go in here again. This base has been shut down for over 30 seconds. Stephano's trying to go Roach Swarm Host. And keeping this one Oracle alive is making Stephano's life a living hell. He might lose a Hell Muffin, but he doesn't. And he's going to deflect some harassment with the Queens. Immortal Sentry being pushed out to the top right. Creep spread continuing nicely for our French Zerg. Stephano, by the way, was the first pro gamer I ever met back in DreamHack Austin, a tournament that took place in 2012. The Sentry Archon is being encountered by the Roach here, and Hero does have an Observer with this, which I guess is worth something, but not a lot, because Stephano did a lot to that army. He's going to inflict heavy damage on Hero, who will have to recall. Nidus Worm coming up here in the bottom left for Stephano. This is something that we saw a little bit in my 2v2 game that will be linked in the description yesterday, but it's something we've seen from professional Zergs, and Zergs even on the ladder in general, the Nidus Worm. This item, what am I playing, RuneScape? This structure has been buffed severely, and it just recently got hit with a little bit of a nerf, but it has gotten a lot of love in about the last year of StarCraft 2's history, and Zerg players, because of how fast units can load and unload, it's a really powerful thing to utilize, especially when it comes to harass. You also see this with Swarm Host, even before the unit got a buff, as a little bit of Immortal Sentry will get caught out here. This was the one thing that the Swarm Host was used with most, the Nidus Worm. And we can see here a little bit of multi-prong. Actually, it looks like Stephano's going to look to drop on the 4th. And the Nidus Worm loads and unloads so quickly. Look at that, almost instant retreat. I didn't even see these units leave that Nidus Worm. And remember, the Nidus Worm does so much burst damage with these powerful locusts that unless you get your army over there very quickly, you can lose this Nexus. And he was forced to stop mining for a little bit, but because his entire army came over, Hero was able to defend. And Stephano has roaches in the main base, speed zealots coming in to defend as the Nidus approaches in the main, but we see roaches in the natural as well, the Immortal doing some damage, the 3rd is fine. The Nidus goes down there, and the Nidus is going to be cleaned up in the bottom left. So remember, Stephano doesn't actually have that much of a backup plan. Okay, he's starting to get Greater Spire and a melee upgrade, so that's something. But at the same time, he really needs to do damage with the Swarm Host here. He's going to aggress with the Roach Hydra, which is O2 as far as upgrades go. And the classic +3 weapons first with the armor and shields neglected for Hero, who's going to do what I like to call the fuck it push, where you're taking severe damage at home and you just say fuck it and attack your opponent. Now, this Nidus Worm going down is rather awful because it will prevent Stephano from popping up a new extra Nidus Worm, and he doesn't have one in his main. So he's going to have to pick and choose as far as what he defends with. A lot of Immortal Archon, and these are the sort of armies that you don't like to fight as Zerg because they don't really have any filler units. Now, if this army has another Sentry and a couple High Templars, it's damn near impossible to stop with ground Zerg. That's why Stephano's finishing up his Greater Spire here. But Hero's going to hit hard and fast with those +3 weapons. Guardian Shield going up, that's intelligent. Everything Stephano has is a ranged unit. And those Immortals just do so much front-loaded damage versus this mix. Because with +3 armor, they really, with +3 weapon. A lot of times when I misspeak like that and it's a solo cast, I wonder if I've done it like 10 times in the cast. Anyway, Archons are going to mow down the 4th for Stephano. And the 3rd didn't fare much better, and Oa's Natural's gone, LOL. The Protoss player is really taking control of this game. Stephano has lost over a dozen workers, although Hero doesn't have that many workers either due to Stephano's severe attack at the natural and main. And the thing about fighting Swarm Host is they sort of drag you down as you have to endure more and more waves. But Hero there with some slick micro takes it out, a little bit of hot pickup. This is the best of 3. Subscribe so you don't miss the next game, which is coming out tomorrow!